All right, guys, let's go for a lap at the bike shop. Today, we're talking about tubular tyres and how to glue them onto your rims. And for you that don't know what tubular tyres are, it's not tubular, it's totally different. This is an old school standard of tyre. It's been around for a long, long time, and it's traditionally been the fastest racing option because you can have the highest pressures for road riding in them. The general industry's moved a bit past this, and now there's a lot of really good clincher tyre options and good tubeless options, so they're almost just as good. But these are still really popular, particularly in track racing, where you know you've got clean wooden boards and you're not going to puncture. Basic concept of this is it's a tyre and a tube stitched together in one. So the rim, come and have a quick look. The rim is a flat, or is a curved surface without sidewalls, and the tyre and the tube is one piece, and it sits on top and then gets glued into position. The basic benefit is you get to run much, much higher pressures on these. So lots of people have different methods in how they glue the tyres on. They all essentially work as long as you get the tyre really well stuck on, so you can rail a corner without being worried that you're going to peel the tyre off. So any method will really work, but I'll run you through my favourite method, which has worked for me really well, and never had a tyre come off, and they're usually stuck on really good when you try to take them off to swap the tyre out. So usually pretty successful. So once you've peeled your old tyre off, there'll typically be lots of glue left on the rim. As long as the glue's been applied fairly evenly, you can actually glue over the top of it again, especially if you're using the same kind of glue. The same kind of glue will essentially reactivate the old glue to some extent and help really stick it together. But if you've got a really old rim covered in crappy old glue, you might want to use some glue remover or something to just try to get as much off as you can. If you've got a brand new rim, that's even better. So what we're going to do to do this process is we're going to paint a thin layer of glue onto the rim, covering all the surfaces but without filling up the spoke and the valve hole. We're going to paint a thin layer, let that dry, or at least tack up for an hour or so. Then we're going to do a secondary layer over the top again, let that tack up again. And then the next step, we'll actually do the final glue stage and put the tyre on. The final glue stage, we'll do again a thin layer around the whole rim. We'll put a thin layer on the tyre, let them both just tack up for 5 or 10 minutes so they're not dripping off with glue, and then we'll pull it on in a really clean method without leaving as little glue on the rim as possible. Pump it up, and then we'll align the tyre onto the rim so it spins nice and straight. So we'll run through the process on this one. We've already put one layer of glue on this rim to start with, so we're going to do a second layer, and then we're going to glue this tyre on and show you how it's all done. The very first step that will really help in this process is pre-stretching your tyre. Fortunately, we have a spare rim, tubular rim here, that I put the tyre on and pump it up and leave it pumped up for a few days. But if you don't have a spare rim, you can just put this on the rim that you're going to be gluing it onto. So I would highly recommend put the tyre on, pump it up to like 150 psi or as hard as the tyre goes, and just let it sit for a few days. This will really stretch the tyre and make the process so much easier when you get to do it. To do this job, a truing stand will be really good, but otherwise you can use the forks or the frame of your bike and put your bike in a work stand or flip your bike upside down, or you need something to hold your wheel while you put the glue on. So you've got to figure that out at home. The other things you'll need is some glue. I usually use Victoria Mastic 1, I'd recommend this. You'll need a paintbrush, and you'll need some solvent. This is mineral terps, just to clean off the glue off your brushes after the fact. So get all your stuff ready to go. Find your spot you're going to do it and get yourself prepared before you start this process. So we've already got a layer of glue on this. This is a bit of an older track wheel, this one here. So now we're going to put the second thin layer on this and let that dry. So you want to avoid having clumps and big bits and pieces of glue on the rim because that will cause the tyre to be out of round. So you're really better off to do thin layers, and you can even do more layers than two if you do lots of little thin ones. So we'll start at the valve hole typically. So I've located the valve hole to be here. I'll usually paint down the rim because the glue will want to fall down from gravity rather than trying to go up, we'll go down. And we want to sort of go around the nipple holes and the valve hole and not get too much glue in the hole. A little bit will be okay, but just really try to avoid it as best as possible. we want to paint right up to the edges of the rim, but not get any on the side. This is a track wheel, so it's got no brakes, but when you have a road tubular wheel, any glue on the sidewall will affect the braking on the bike. So we'll get started on this one. We'll go a little bit on our paintbrush. I like to do a method like this. I hold the can and hold the rim and the paintbrush in my other hand. A little bit on the brush, and I just start to paint it on from the valve hole down. So we've done our 2 thin layers of glue on the rim already, and that's dried over a few hours of time. Now we're ready to actually put the tyre on the wheel. So a few things to consider first. If you need a valve extender for a deep carbon rim, really make sure you've got that sorted beforehand before you go to put your tyre on. That'll be awkward when you got to like quickly rush and change it over while the glue is drying. The other thing to consider is how much pressure you have in the tyre. I really find this job is quite a lot easier if you put a little bit more pressure in it. So this one here it's not hard, but it's got enough pressure that it holds its shape, and they sort of tend to roll upwards, exposing the inner side like this. So now we've got it all pressured up. What we're going to do is we're going to put a nice layer of glue on this rim. Then we're going to go back and do 1 layer of glue on, I should say we're going to do 1 layer of glue on this tyre, and then we're going to go and do an extra layer of glue on the rim. Give it a couple minutes, say 5 minutes, just so it packs up a little bit. Then we're going to put them together, and we're going to do it really cleanly, and there's going to be minimal cleanup required, hopefully. So we'll start at the valve again, and we want to paint very cleanly right into the edge of the tape on the inside of the tyre, particularly around the valve. Get it all nice and neat. Alright, we've painted the inner tape all the way around end to end on our tyre. So now we can just leave that for a moment to tack up a little bit for 5 minutes or so, and we're going to go and do the rim now. So again, we'll start at our valve, and we're going to paint down the rim, just a very thin layer again, finish this whole lap, and we're going to let it tack up and put it together. So let's do this. Alright, that's the final layer on the wheel done. Now it's time to let it tack off for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll put them together. Now we're ready to put the tyre on for good. So have your tyre ready, still with that pressure in it. This is actually going to help us put the tyre on, which is opposite to a tube tyre where we want to get all the air out. So have your tyre with a bit of air in it ready to go. Have some cleaner ready, like a solvent. This is wax and grease remover, but some isopropyl alcohol or something that cleans off glue really good. Have that ready to go so we can clean up the sidewalls and the rim if we need to. And a good clean rag. And I've got this block of wood here that I'm going to push against on the floor just so I don't get any glue on anything, but you might want to consider what's on the floor beneath you. So what we're going to do now, find the valve hole, and we're going to start with the valve through the valve hole, and we're going to press this on nice and centered. Now pushing down, we'll be able to grab the tyre and start stretching as hard as we can away, and stick a little bit on at a time. So go stretch, 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 stretch. And then at this point we can lift it up, and this is where we've got to try not to drag the glue over the rim and get it on like this. So now we actually need to just make sure the tie's in the center. See right here, we can just put it in the center. We can use a bit of tape line around the outside to make sure it's nice and even all the way around, so we can have a good look. It's all looking pretty even so far, so we can put it back in the tree stand. give it a spin and see what it looks like. So have a look at this. At the moment, it's not straight at all. So now we can find our bumpy spots, put them in the center of the rim. All right, once we're getting quite happy that the tire's nice and straight, now we can put some more air in it again. And now what I'd recommend we do is we go and just push the tyre on and really just seat the tyre into the glue nicely, all the way around. All right, now the very final thing we got to do is clean off any glue that we might have left on the sidewall. This is where we want to work nice and quick before it gets too hard. So we'll give it a really good clean up. Get the tan walls looking nice and fresh again. Then look at that, your tyre's on your rim. So you really want to leave this for 24 hours before you ride it. If you really have to, if it's an emergency and you've got a race coming up on the road and you're going to be going primarily in a straight line, you're okay to go and ride this straight away, but don't go and trust it too hard around corners. So ideally leave it for 24 hours and then this tyre is well stuck on. So you can go try this at home. You'll probably come across these tyres if you're in the track scene, or maybe if you're in like a serious road bike racing scene. That's where you'll see a lot of this stuff. So now you know how to do a tubular, you can go and try this at home. So let us know how you go.